Hi, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Welcome to week 5. So I'm going to start off, give a couple of announcements, talk about our upcoming article critique assignment, of course, check in with our research proposal assignment, give you some feedback from last week's discussion and chapters 7 and 8 that we read, and then leave you with the checklist for this week. We do have a Zoom discussion this week, an optional one. So I'm looking forward to that. If any of you are interested, the link is in the announcement box in iCollege. Okay, so one important thing this week is signing up for the first article critique assignment. So this assignment is going to be due March 12th, and we're going to be doing it in Perusal, and it's going to be about quantitative research. So the goal of this assignment is to show that you are able to read and critique a peer-reviewed educational research study. So like I mentioned, they're all going to be quantitative research. So I have several for you to choose from in iCollege. So I'm going to talk to you about how you're going to do that. You can also choose your own. So the first step this week, like I mentioned, is to go ahead and choose your article. So if you would like to look at the options that I have given, they are in iCollege. So when you click the survey in iCollege, it's in the announcements tool, it will look like this. So here are, it's about 10 articles. And when you click the link, it will open a new page and you can read the abstract of the article. So I have several different topics here, but you can also choose your own article. So this could be helpful for you potentially because for our research proposal assignment due at the end of the semester, you do have to have a literature review section. So you have to have at least 3 peer-reviewed articles that you have read and incorporate into your proposal. So you can use one of the same articles. So if you want to go ahead and do a search for articles related to your research proposal topic, if you find one that uses quantitative methods such as quasi-experimental design or some type of other quantitative research, you can email that to me and I will let you know if that will work for this assignment. So that is the first step this week, is to sign up. Again, I will show you where to find this exactly in iCollege, or you can find your own article and email it to me for perusal. Now, after you have chosen your article, I will create your assignment for you in Perusal. So it is going to be in Perusal, so you won't see that right away. So you can have the week to choose your article, and then I will set up your personalized assignment with the article that you chose. Now, I'll be talking more about this because it's not due for another month, but once you, just so you know where we're going, once you have your assignment in Perusal, you are going to be using this, this checklist from, you're going to be using this checklist from our chapter that we read about critiquing educational research. So this is table 4.2, the checklist for critically evaluating a quantitative study. So these are the questions that you will use to guide you as you read and critique the article. So things like identifying the research purpose, the research questions, their variables. In their method section, we're kind of getting into that this week, thinking about how did they sample, how did they choose the participants, are their measures reliable that they're using? Did they talk about reliability? Did they talk about validity of the measures that they're using? Ethics, were participants treated ethically? How did they handle that? What were their data sources? What were their data collection methods? And then their analysis, and then their discussion. So your goal with this assignment is to read through the research article and make note of all the different points that we've learned about and show that you are able to synthesize research. And I will be showing you an example as we get there. But step 1 is to choose your article. So I am going to go to iCollege right now so you can see where to find the articles that I've given you to choose from. Again, you can also choose your own, but here are some to get you started. So you will see on the announcements, number 4, choose an article for the article critique. So when you click that, it will take you to the survey. yours will probably look, I'll show you the preview version so you can see what it will look like for you. So once you get there, it will look similar to this. So for each of these are links. When you click the link, it will take you to the page where you can read the abstract. So I will, like I mentioned, after you choose your study, I will create an assignment for you in Perusal, but if you want to read more, you can read the abstract. So here, this choice is here, you can push submit, or if none of these are speaking to you, if you would prefer to more so do one that goes with your research proposal assignment, then you can email that to me. Now, the research proposal, the next step is due actually before that, March 5th. So most of you seem to have a solid footing about your research topic. You guys did a great job with the research question. And I've seen many of you making connections in Perusal to your topic, which will definitely help you continue to work forward. So for the next assignment, we're going to be using the template, and you'll have your final research issue, your final research question, and then your potential design. And many of you have already thought about this, but you will write about what your potential design will be, either quantitative, qualitative, or a mixed method study, and then also your data collection. So that's what we covered last week in chapter 8, the different methods of data collection. You will indicate which one or ones you are considering using. And then also 3 potential references. They just need to be an APA citation. So for this, we'll go back to chapter 4 to learn how to cite those articles, how to find those articles. And again, you don't need to do an annotated bibliography or anything like that. You just need to include those references for articles that you plan to incorporate in your proposal. Like I mentioned, if you want to read one of these articles that goes along with your topic for your research proposal for the article critique assignment, you definitely can do that as well. And if you want on Zoom this week, if you come, I can talk with you a little bit. We can do a little search for articles if you'd like to do that then too, if you're interested in choosing a different article. So I wanted to give a little feedback about your discussion for chapters 7 and 8. Again, I continue to be impressed with all of the engagement and the connections that everyone's making. A lot of people made some really great points, particularly with chapter 7, involving kind of bringing together everything we've done so far in terms of ethics and how that reads on to establishing reliability and validity for measures. Now, we are going to be talking about reliability and validity in our upcoming readings this week. But in chapter 7, we were focused on reliability and validity of instruments that we're using. So it might be educational tests, it might be different measures that are claiming to measure a particular construct, like self-concept, self-esteem, different concepts like that you might be using in your study. And so this was a point that a few of you made in Perusal, and I wanted to underscore it here. This is talking about validity. So of course you want to make sure that your test is measuring what it's intending to measure, but then beyond that, making sure that it is applicable to people in a particular context. So the participants that you're considering, and you're making interpretations, assuming assumptions based on that. So this is related to the concepts that they talked about in the text about the norm group that is used to measure the validity and find evidence of validity of a particular measure. But you have to make sure that you have evidence that there is validity for the given population or group that you're planning to use the instrument with. Now, just for clarification, the measures and tests that the authors are writing about in chapter 7 are not something that you would write as part of your research proposal, but rather that you would select to use to gather data for one of your variables. I think I mentioned like self-concept, self-esteem, different perception scales, engagement, there's lots of different educational tests and measures that have been established and researched to that claim to be able to effectively measure a given construct. So making sure that when you are selecting one of those, that there is research establishing reliability and validity with a given population. And a lot of you brought up some of the issues related to that and how over time in history and even today that misuse of tests and validity, misuse of the validity, making false interpretations about groups where it doesn't apply to another group has been very oppressive. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And I enjoyed reading your comments about that. And then I also wanted to mention about chapter 8. So chapter 8 went into the different methods of and different types of data that you can use in your study. So a lot of you really enjoyed the examples in the lecture last week and had some other examples too in your discussion. So this is again something that we're going to be coming back to because these data collection methods, some of them are associated with quantitative design, some of them are associated with qualitative design, some of them can be used for both. So we are going to be coming back to these throughout the rest of the course. And this week, when we are talking about this week, I also have an extra lecture about chapter 9, which is all about questionnaires. So if you're thinking about survey research or questionnaire, that is included in this week's perusal for you to get a bit more in depth. I also show you how to search for some existing questionnaires or surveys, if that's something that you are thinking about including or want to know more about. There's some really great questions about existing data and also some interesting comments about interviews that you guys put there. So I want to go to the multiple choice questions for chapter 4. Okay, so I was just talking about secondary data. So an example of that would be archived research. And there are a couple of comments about examples and helpful links if you're interested in using an existing data set. This is about the different types of scales. So there was some great examples that people gave about examples that they use either in real life. Here, looking at a categorical variable like gender, there's many different categorical variables, but you can still use a categorical variable in quantitative design by assigning them a number, even though that number doesn't have any meaning other than it is referring to a particular category. So the consistency or stability of the test score. So this is reliability. This could be over time, over different raters. So or one half of the test to the other. There's many different aspects of reliability that we read about in chapter 7. Now, that is also important is validity. And the text does a really good job talking about, instead of different types of validity, looking for evidence that indicates that the measure is valid. So here you can see a preponderance of evidence supports the inferences made. And then also you might see a coefficient, and we're looking for something greater than or equal to 0.7. So those are the multiple choice questions that go with chapters 7 and 8. So next, I want to talk about our checklist for this week. So this week, we're going to be reading chapters 10 and 11, and chapter 9 is going to be optional. So I want to go ahead and show you what perusal 5 looks like. So in this perusal in chapters 10 and 11, we are going to be reading about sampling. This is how the participants are chosen in quantitative research. And then I also too, I think that they talk about how participants are chosen, even though sampling isn't quite the language, how participants are chosen to be enrolled in a given study. And then also chapter 11, talking about establishing validity of the research results. So we've already talked about validity. That's in terms of measures, particular tests that you're using as to determine and collect data for one of your variables. But this is talking about specific to a given study, how to establish validity of those results. So there's the lecture, then of course there are the lecture slides. You can see about sampling. So again, when you are in the chapter about sampling, I want you to think about your research proposal. Who will your potential participants be? Who would they be? Of course, it's just a proposal. You don't need to worry about actually finding them. Who will they be? How will you choose them? And that will depend on your research design. Is it a quasi-experimental? Are you using a qualitative design? So as you're reading chapter 10, be thinking about it with your proposal and which technique you might use to choose your participants. And you can always drop that in the chat too. In perusal, I can give you some feedback. And there's been some great discussion with people talking to each other too. So someone else might weigh in as well. And then, of course, chapter 11 about, so here you can see qualitative research, and then they also do talk about quantitative research and mixed design. So then thinking about validity and establishing validity in determining your research results. So you will see that here. So this is the same as every week. And then we have the review questions for chapter 10 and chapter 11. And then the multiple choice questions. There's quite a few here. We only had 5 this week, but there's 10 here. Again, these are optional, but they are great practice for the midterm. And then there's an extra part this week. This is the extra lecture about chapter 9, and particularly how to use the Georgia State Library to search for existing instruments and measures that you might use for one of your variables, particularly if you're considering a quantitative study. Okay. So that is what we have coming up. So our next, this is going to be our, let me go back to the lecture. Actually, I wanted to take you to the syllabus just to show you where we are in the course. So we are working on our foundations of research. So we just finished our week 4, chapter 7 and 8. Chapter 9 is here, and you see that that one is optional, but you can use that as a reference point, particularly if you're using that data collection method in your proposal. So this week we're doing chapters 10 and 11, sampling and research validity. And then starting next week, we'll be moving on to quantitative design, which will really help you with your article critique. So we will have the week of February 13th to do chapters 12 and 13. Then the week after that, we will be having a review week to study for our midterm. So we have this week and then the following week, and then an entire review week where you will take your midterm. So just so you can see what's coming there, there'll be no new readings that week. I will do a review lecture in perusal. There'll be a Zoom that week, so you can really come on and study and feel ready for the midterm. So that is coming up, but we do have a few weeks until then. And like I mentioned, this entire week that the midterm is due, you won't have any new readings, and there will be a review perusal that will help make sure that you're ready. So this week, I just showed you the perusal. Okay, I'm recording. For chapters 10 and 11, chapter 9 is optional, but the lecture is there too, for those of you who are interested in questionnaires and survey research. So that's perusal 5. There is an optional Zoom this week if you prefer to do that instead of your perusal. A lot of you are doing both. I love to see all of the engagement. Again, I've been just so impressed with the engagement, the connections, and the comments, and the readings, and everything so far. So keep it up. Also this week, I want you to choose your article for your first article critique assignment. That is in the announcements in iCollege, or you can choose your own article and email it to me. talked about the midterm. Research proposal will be coming, the next check-in will be coming soon, and then the article critique after that. So I hope you are feeling like you're starting to understand the structure of the course and starting to see the connections. Like I mentioned, the text really builds upon itself. I think one of the chapters was saying, go back to chapter 2 if you want to review there. So you can see a lot of these terms and ideas are starting to create a thread that you will see come back to, and you will continue to build your understanding as we continue through the course. So please email me if you have any questions. Again, you can always come to Zoom on Thursday at 5:15 or set up another time with me. And I look forward to hearing your insights this week on chapters 10 and 11. So talk to you soon. Bye-bye.